Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is truly an honor for me to be here at IMI New Delhi. And I was told that the theme of this session is changing the face of the world. And when I was given this topic, I thought the best way for me to share how one can change the face of the world is by sharing my own life story. Because I honestly feel that when I was born, this country was not ready for disability. I was born on 1st September 1987. I was born to this young couple who got married just a year before my birth. And it was on 1st September 1987 that my father drove my mom to a hospital, excited that they're going to have their first child who's going to change their life. I'm not sure whether they knew how the child is going to change their life, because as you can see, I was born with no muscles in my arms and legs, and this disability called arthrogryposis, which is a very rare congenital disorder, a 1 in a million occurrence, as medical doctors say. My parents took me to various doctors on my birth, and a lot of doctors did not really understand what arthrogryposis really is. There were some who said this boy is going to live the life equivalent to a wooden doll. There were others who said, okay, his neck is straight, so maybe it's worth making him live. But then there were also the greatest of doctors, like Dr. Chaubal, who my mom often talks about, who told her that her son will give her the pleasures of motherhood. I hope I have given the pleasures of motherhood to my mother, who's sitting here in the front row. And so that's how my life started. My early life was filled with injections and tough decisions. My parents took me to various doctors trying to find a cure to make me walk, etc. However, by the time I was around 3 years old, fortunately for me, both my parents had decided that they're going to judge me for what I can do and not what I cannot do. And they took one of the best decisions in their lives. And that decision was to send me to a normal school. Again, things were not easy. There were a lot of schools who could not really fathom having a child with a disability in the school. They felt that he should go to a special school. But my mom used to tell all schools at that time that eventually Nipun is going to live a normal life. So I do not want to protect him by sending him to a special school at this stage. Luckily, there was a school in Bombay called St. Mary's, who after around 20 rejections accepted me for this, decided to see what I have and not what I don't. I studied up to class 4th in APJ, in St. Mary's, and of course things were not easy. I mean, children did not know how to interact with a person with a disability. Even the school did not know how to treat a child with a disability. When I was in class 1, one of the teachers actually said that we are not going to promote Nipun because we cannot read his handwriting. My parents went up to the teacher and said that if you're not going to promote him because you cannot read his handwriting, you will never promote him because his handwriting is going to remain the same. And I think my parents were far-sighted at that point of time, because today, I mean, who writes? Everybody types, yeah. And I've moved ahead. In class 4th, I shifted to Delhi, and when we shifted to Delhi because of business decisions. When father decided to start his own firm in Delhi, and that challenge started happening again, that which school will Nipun go to. There was a school in Noida called APJ School Noida, who decided to accept me again for what I did and not what I couldn't do. And one of the reasons why APJ selected me, I feel, is because their own principal, Satya Paul, has had polio at that time. He's no more, but he's a great visionary, a great educator who had made the school completely accessible. And the school started giving me a lot of opportunities. Of course, in APJ also, challenges continued in terms of my peers. My peers did not really know how to react to a person with a disability. I guess anybody in class 4 or 5 would not know, especially in India, would not know how to interact with a person with a disability, because we don't really see people with disabilities out in the open. I mean, I remember I went to Europe in class 6th, and it's then that I realized myself also that I'm not an alien, because I saw a lot of wheelchair users around. So you cannot really blame the students there. But I do remember the loneliness I used to face when I was in school. I used to go for birthday parties where people were not interacting with me. My only friends were maybe my parents and 1 or 2 people in my colony and my tuition teachers. So school life at that point of time was very lonely. But I decided to concentrate on what I could do and not what I couldn't. That's something I've repeated 3 times on this speech already. And I think that's the mantra you all should have. Concentrate on your strengths. I decided to start working hard on my studies. I slogged through my senior school. In class 10th, when the results came out, I scored 87%. And what happened after this class 10th result is that a lot of people in school started treating me as an equal because they realized that this man can do something too. And I feel that maybe before class 10th, they felt that perhaps Nipun has a, I don't know, maybe they did not know how to react to a person with disability, but maybe people also felt that a person with disability has a mental challenge. And my class 10th result was a changing point in my life from that perspective. I was also featured in a lot of newspapers, and it's then that I promised to my mother that once the class 12th results come, I'm going to be on the front pages of newspapers. And I achieved that dream when in class 12th I scored 98 marks in business studies, being the country topper and scoring 92%. However, the challenges were to continue. I wanted to go to a great college in the country, and I had big dreams, just like anybody has, especially the students here who are in one of India's most eminent business schools. But most colleges in India, or specifically in Delhi, were not really accessible to persons with disability. And I think we took the easy way out when I decided to go to a private college for a BBA. However, 2 years into the private college, I was not really happy with what I was feeling in that private college. I mean, I thought I was studying for a piece of paper. I was not feeling academically challenged. And being academically challenged had always been very important for me pre that private college, because being challenged and then performing well, defeating peers was something that really gave me the high. And here I felt that nobody was challenging me. I was stopping without studying. I don't want to sound arrogant here, but I was stopping. And so I decided to drop out of the college. And it was a tough decision. There were a lot of people who said, you've studied in this private college for 2 years. Why don't you just complete the graduation? But I did not want to study for a piece of paper. And I decided to apply to Delhi University. Delhi University in those 2 years hadn't, of course, changed at all. Colleges were still not very accessible or open to persons with disabilities. However, my percentage, despite the 2-year gap, was still pretty high, even from the Delhi University cutoff point of view. And I still remember my interview at St. Stephen's, where the principal and the economics head of department really liked my profile. But they asked me one question, that the economics classroom has been on the first floor for 130 years, and we cannot shift it down for one student. So I was sure that I wanted to study at Stephens, and I gave them a resounding yes, that I do want to study in Stephens. I will go up one floor every day. I went up one floor every day for 4 days. I took 3 people from my house along every day to lift me up. But in 4 days' time, seeing my persistence, St. Stephen's, a 130-year-old institution, actually shifted the economics classroom down. So that was a big turning point. St. Stephen's was one of the best periods of my life. I was a founder of the entrepreneurship cell at St. Stephen's. I had seen how entrepreneurship had changed my father's destiny. I remembered in 1997 when we shifted to Noida. There were 4 of us, me, my parents, and my brother. We used to sleep in one room. Today, he employs more than 300 people, and is the chairman of one of India's biggest auto component companies. And I felt that at St. Stephen's, most people either want to join a multinational or become a bureaucrat or join academics, but nobody really had that rigor to become an entrepreneur, do it in life, and provide employment to others. And that's why I started the entrepreneurship cell. Other than that, I was also the founder of the enabling committee that worked on accessibility within the college. Today, St. Stephen's is one of the most accessible colleges in the country. And secondly, the entrepreneurship cell still exists. So yeah, I did manage creating some history in the college. And it was in 2010 that I passed out of St. Stephen's. Just like most students who were passing out of St. Stephen's, I decided that the next natural progression is to do a master's in economics. And I decided to sit for the Delhi School of Economics entrance exam. When I was preparing for my Delhi School of Economics entrance, I started hearing whispers from my classmates that iska to physically challenged quota mein ho jayega, he doesn't really need to study hard, while they were slogging. They thought that this guy has the easy way out, basically. I wanted to prove them wrong. I think throughout my life, the skill my parents have imbibed in me is to prove everybody wrong, and that same thing came here too. I slogged for that 1 month leading up to the entrance, and when the result for that entrance came out, I had scored the 52nd rank nationally, and I'd actually defeated all those friends who were making those jokes about me. So that was a proud moment in my life. Delhi School of Economics, the first year again was pretty good, apart from the fact that towards the middle of my first year, I decided to start sitting for placements. This was again a herd mentality. Everybody was sitting for placements. So I thought, why not I sit for placements too? And it was in this moment really that I realized what disability really is. Disability is not really the physical disability that one really has, but it is the barriers that society creates to prevent a person from properly flourishing. And I realized that society was not really, especially the corporate sector in society, was not really ready to have a person with a disability in the corporate sector. And the reason I'm saying that is because you all are future business leaders who are sitting here. I think you can change the corporate sector. And that's why I'm highlighting this point. I faced a couple of humiliating experiences. I remember a company where I went for 7 rounds of interviews. And I was actually rejected because they did not have a disabled-friendly toilet. I remember another company that actually asked me if I've ever read a book. I think a master's student obviously has read more than one book. There was a third company that said, we don't think you can sit for 8 hours on your chair, and that's why we do not want to hire you. And this situation happened again and again for 7 or 8 companies. And it's then that I made a decision that if you really want to create change in the world, it's better to come from a position of strength rather than going with a begging bowl. I joined my family business, where I'm the executive director today. And I also founded the Nipman Foundation in 2012, immediately after passing out of Delhi School or graduating from Delhi School of Economics. The Nipman Foundation works in the areas of health, dignity, and happiness for persons with disabilities. When we were starting the Nipman Foundation, we thought that there are a lot of foundations that are looking after the physiological needs of persons with disabilities, but there are not too many that look at the disabled as complete individuals. And that was really our vision behind the Nipman Foundation. One of our flagship events is the Nipman Foundation Equal Opportunity Awards, where we recognize companies employing persons with disabilities. In the first year, Lemon Tree Hotels, that has a vision of hiring 25% people with disabilities across their organization, won it. In the second year, there's a society company called EMC from Bangalore and Yum Foods, the owners of Pizza Hut and KFC, that won it. Again, 2 great companies employing people with disabilities. We've managed associating ourselves with a lot of national figures who've tried creating this sensitivity towards inclusion through the Nipman Foundation Equal Opportunity Awards. Kalki Kaiklin created a video for us. Dr. Shashi Tharoor was a chief guest last year. So we've got a lot of support, and brick by brick, we are trying to change the way corporates look at persons with disability. Apart from that, in March last year, I was denied entry by a restaurant because I'm a person with a disability. They actually said that the disabled are not allowed inside as a policy. It was a humiliating experience for me. I was with friends who were sitting inside, and suddenly when you try to enter, you're prevented from entering the restaurant. I put it out on Twitter and it started trending. I'm sure some of you might have actually read up about this incident too. But what this incident made me realize is that I can create a noise while others cannot. And there are a lot of people who are facing similar discrimination. And one of the best ways to counter this is to reward restaurants maybe that are wheelchair friendly or disabled friendly. I contacted Zomato, which is India's biggest restaurant search application. I'm sure you all use it all the time. And Zomato and I succeeded in adding a wheelchair access filter for restaurants. And what's that's done is that not only do restaurants have to rate themselves as wheelchair accessible, which motivates them to become wheelchair accessible, but once you start answering questions on whether you're wheelchair accessible or not, you're definitely not going to deny an entry to a person to a restaurant just because he's disabled. I've also succeeded in making Uber launch an app, and a mini app within their app called Uber Assist, which is a paratransit service for persons with disability and the elderly. They actually, in one of the cities, actually have a visually challenged driver too now. It started off with having an app to provide transport to people with disabilities, but it's great if they can even hire taxi drivers, etc., for persons with disabilities. So things are happening. Change is difficult, it is slow, but I think if you keep persisting, it keeps happening. Just 2 days back, I was denied, and a leading airline did not allow me to board the flight because the security at an airport thought that a wheelchair can be a security risk. I do not really understand how my wheelchair can be a security risk. But that's motivated me further, and I'm going to work with the Civil Aviation Ministry to change security policies for the disabled too. Thank you.